Welcome to the Haunted Brew. Grab your favorite blend of coffee or tea and pull up a comfy chair for some unexplainable and unsettling stories. Ones that may leave you intrigued or sleeping with the light on tonight. Although I currently reside in the mountains, I personally prefer the empty barrens and seclusion of the Death Valley Desert. If you're a desert dweller yourself, I'm sure you'll agree this sparse landscape is set apart from all other environs. It assaults the senses with blistering heat, harsh winds, and stinging sands, then soothes its wanderers with cool silence and a fiery sky when the sun sinks low. The quiet is heavy but freeing, making the slightest scuffle across crushed granite seem gravely disruptive. Some consider the desert to be an irredeemable wasteland, never to be underestimated. Death Valley has rightfully earned its name. However, it's one of the few places where I can truly breathe. It was in this remarkable place that a fortuitous discovery of a rather unusual green mailbox brought to mind these stories. While my encounters didn't occur in Death Valley, this mailbox was the catalyst that transported them from memories to paper. And although these stories are separated by years, I strongly feel they're interconnected. I became further convinced of their relational significance after listening to a podcast in which a young man shared a series of experiences with uncanny resemblance. If others have witnessed these things, maybe my experiences would be of some benefit to others, a sort of validation or understanding, perhaps even to the rightful owner of a mysterious green mailbox in the middle of the Mojave Desert. In 1988, I was a high school senior in a small rural community situated in the high desert of Nevada. While our town was too small to merit a single stoplight, we did have a sufficiently stocked grocery store, rodeo grounds, and a pizza place with its trademark beer-infused crust. While shooting a movie, Clint Eastwood made an appearance at our walk-up ice cream shack, firmly planting our town's dot on the map. High school for me was not a time to sign yearbooks and make memories. On the contrary, I didn't particularly care for my popular graduating class and tended to spend more quality time with the artistic, literary crowd, considered bothersome or simply odd. I enjoyed writing and drawing, so their company suited me just fine. One early morning, I was heavily ensconced in the detail shading of a 16 by 22 movie poster a fellow student had asked me to illustrate. It was around 2 a.m. when I snapped the lid shut on my pencil box and clicked off the dining room light. I brushed my teeth and pulled on a loose-fitting t-shirt before propping myself up in bed to journal my thoughts for the day. While reading through past entries, my bedroom suddenly became engulfed in a pale white light. My surroundings had no definition. My body had no definition. And while it was readily apparent, I couldn't move, but a sense of movement was all around me. I felt as though I was approaching some sort of terminus. As I traveled, I could hear the murmuring of a crowd in the background. At first, the white noise seemed benign, like the many random conversations at a cocktail party. But one voice became distinct as it spoke above the others, and it spoke directly to me. "Come on," it said. "You're almost there." The voice sounded male, and while it was gentle and soft-spoken, I was paralyzed with fear. A fear compounded by my involuntary and accelerating movement forward. That's it. Keep going. Devoid of any point of reference, I still somehow knew I was fast approaching the end. In desperation, I inhaled sharply and blurted, "Stop it!" Immediately, the room took on its familiar shape. lighted by the warm glow of my bedside lamp. Sitting upright in bed, I still had the pencil in my hand and the journal on my lap. My heart beat like a fist on the inner wall of my chest. All was quiet, motionless. The rest of the household fast asleep. The following afternoon, I shared my experience with a friend who dismissed it entirely. I explained the abject fear, insisting I wasn't dreaming, and the feeling I was being dragged into hell. Her response? Knowing you probably were. Gotta love those high school rejects. In the winter of 1996, I was temporarily residing in a stucco ranch-style house owned by my grandparents. They had recently relocated to mountainous California and kindly offered me their valley home until I found a place of my own. The 3-bedroom, 3-bath home was far more than I needed, but it was a sweet and familiar place, serving as a trigger for many fond childhood memories. Even though the house would always have that comforting atmosphere of family, living in it alone made me feel a little uneasy at times, especially when night fell. My grandparents' home sat on a hill in a neighborhood with streets named after precious stones. From the edge of their steep concrete driveway, I'd often look out across a vast vista of creosote, yucca, and dry washes. In the west, the small flickering lights of a small town bathed its smoky sky in a soft orange glow. To the north, the long stretch of highway split the massive dry lake bed between Lucerne and Barstow. It's a view and a home I will always remember fondly. Although I worked early hours at a local market, I enjoyed my nights in the desert, cold winds and moonlit mountains during a suitable season for coffee was something I savored. It was after 11 when I threw on a second blanket and crawled into bed with a paperback book. My bedroom was near the front of the house, with the bathroom directly across the hallway. A nightlight plugged in above the bathroom sink illuminated my bedroom doorway with enough light to see when the alarm went off before sunrise. After setting my book aside and clicking off the reading lamp, I let my eyes adjust to the darkness. The glow of the nightlight spilled reassuringly across my bedroom floor, and I was asleep within minutes. I have no idea what time of night it was, but I know my sleep was deep when suddenly I awoke in a panic. Sitting bolt upright in bed, I looked around the room and listened, trying to determine what had awakened me. In the glow of the nightlight, I watched as a dense smoke began to creep in from the hallway and spread across the bedroom floor. My immediate assumption was a fire had started somewhere in the house. I threw off my bed covers and swung my bare feet to the floor. Then everything went black. Later, I remember feeling extremely cold, but was too tired to do anything about it. When the freezing temperature became more than I could comfortably bear, my eyes opened. I was sitting on the couch in the living room, facing the television. I had no blanket, and the heater had been turned down to conserve energy. Every single light in the house was on, and I have no memory of turning on the lights, finding the source of the smoke, or moving to the couch to stare at a blank television. And just to allay any concerns, I didn't feel probed either. The summer of 1998 was my first firefighting season. I joined an Eastern Sierra wildland firefighter crew, stationed in some ramshackle trailer with a barn for an engine garage. The fires we fought in that area were primarily caused by lightning, spreading fast in the valley and skunking around in the back country. The work was dirty and physically taxing, but the experience proved valuable. In between fire deployments, I had traveled south to visit a friend in Lucerne. She too lived off the area I was in, but her house was lower on the hill, One evening, I was out on her back patio watching two younger boys hunt around for lizards. The sky was dusty purple, and a warm breeze rustled the scrub brush along the fence line. I leaned back in my lawn chair and gazed out at the desert valley floor. It felt good to be wearing shorts and a t-shirt, and not Nomex with heavy leather fire boots. As my friend walked up the property to join me on the patio, I noticed something odd over her shoulder. Miles away, hovering above the dry lake bed, was what I can only describe as a gigantic steel ball. Its mirrored surface reflected the lights of vehicles traveling the highway, and its size dominated the surrounding environment. I gestured empathetically for her to turn around, but she waved me off as though I was playing some adolescent game. I watched this unblemished sphere appear and exist, unmoving and without a sound. The sighting lasted for several seconds, and by the time I convinced my oblivious friend to turn and look, the steel ball had disappeared. It didn't fade or float up into the atmosphere. It simply vanished with a snap of the fingers. I would witness a similar sphere after starting a new job conducting fire patrols in Lee Vining. The difference between the two was a single red blinking light on the second sphere I had seen. It flew against a strong headwind and disappeared from sight somewhere over Nevada. I asked a coworker if he'd ever seen anything strange out in the forest. When prompted for further detail, I told him about the steel ball. He turned in his chair to face me directly. As he looked at me, he appeared to be assessing whether I was serious or subtly mocking him. After all, this man with his unkempt gray hair and gentle smile had been known to wait atop Mount Dana for the mothership. He replied. So soon? I let it alone after that, but as I write, I still have to wonder. For the winter of 2004, I was living in a log cabin around June Lake. The cabin was bitterly cold. At the corners, the logs had separated, and there was no chinking between them. You could actually see light from the outside pouring in. The wood stove provided a great deal of warmth, so when the mercury plummeted, I'd stoke the fire and sleep in the loft. One night, not long after Christmas, I had a frightening experience. I'd been sleeping upstairs, buried deep beneath a stack of quilts, when a bright, blue light disrupted my sleep. My initial thought was I'd forgotten to unplug the twinkling Christmas lights I'd strung around the banister. Exhausted, I rolled to my back to try and work up the nerve to get out from under the warm covers and unplug the lights. But when I opened my eyes, the figure of a man was standing at the foot of my bed. His face was expressionless, and his body projected this brilliant blue light. The sight absolutely terrified me. I could still move, and I could move fast, but the figure was between me and the bedroom door. For whatever reason, I couldn't stand to look at it. Rather than jump and run towards him, or even past him and down the stairs, I rolled to the side of the bed and began praying. My prayer was nothing eloquent. It didn't begin with dear or end with amen. It was more of a rapid yelling prayer. Then suddenly, just like that winter night in '96, everything went black. When I awoke the next morning, I felt a dark heaviness, and later that day I had horrible nausea. Unable to shake the oppression, I scanned an online forum looking for people with similar experiences. One guy, we'll call him Nick, responded and asked me to contact him through his personal email. He had answers, but the answers were controversial. It would be better if we communicated outside the forum. After reaching out via email, Nick responded with information he had about the figure at the foot of my bed. He wrote, The world thinks these things are aliens from another planet, but they're not. They're demons. Since demons are fallen angels, they can't fly right. That's why they have to use flying saucers. With my face propped up against my fist, I stared at Nick's response and read it again. Then I deleted it. Then I deleted my entire email account. Sometimes, it's best to suffer silently. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening to my stories. The truth is indisputable, and it is indeed out there.